Okay, we're going to get going here. Let me make sure as we all assemble. So, okay, do we have everybody? I'm just looking around the table to see, make sure we have everybody. Hello, management down at the end of the table. Rob, join us at the table. Okay. We got all the governors here? I think so, yeah. Okay, so I want to welcome everybody, and I hereby call the meeting to order. This is an open meeting of the Broadcasting Board of Governors. This meeting is being held in compliance with the Government in the Sunshine Act. The live webcast will also be available for later viewing on the BBG website, www.bbg.gov. Let me start. We have a new governor at the table, Karen Kornbluh. And how do you say your last name appropriately?
Any way you like, but
How did your mother say it?
Kornbluh.
Kornbluh. Okay. First, we called Governor Weinstein for the first year, and so now we finally got that right. So, welcome, Karen. Although she joined us in December prior to her appointment, I'm pleased to welcome her formally to her first official board meeting as a confirmed and appointed member of the BBG board. I don't know, Karen, if you want to say a couple words to the board and to the webcast.
Oh, just thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and I'm delighted to be serving on the governorship of such an important agency at such an important time and with such a sterling bunch of governors.
Thanks, Karen. And I will say for everybody, even though this is her first board meeting, she's already contributing mightily at various levels in committees and things like that. So welcome, Karen. So a couple of things on people who are and are not here. So first of all, Ryan Crocker's on the phone. So he's here in spirit and verbally, if not physically. Andy Lack, I want to welcome Andy Lack to the board. This was going to be his first official board meeting. We're kind of cursed. The last official board meeting that he was going to join us at, I think we somehow got delayed somehow. This one, winter storms kind of intervened and dumped snow all over the East Coast. I also spoke to Ann Noonan yesterday, too, who was going to be here, and she got delayed because of the weather. Andy is en route now, and so at some moment he's going to come in here like a tornado. And I'll make a more official welcome then. In the future, the way these board meetings are going to go is I'll say some brief remarks at the beginning and then really turn it over to Andy. Andy's running this agency day to day. I couldn't tell you how pleased I am to have not just a CEO, but this CEO in place. He's a wonderful blessing to the agency. He actually is hard at work, meeting all the various people who are working every day for this agency and trying to figure out how we become better and more effective at what we're doing. And in future board meetings, he'll run the majority of this meeting and give us reports on things that are happening and things that need to come to the board's attention. I'll do a little bit. I spoke to him last night. I will do a little bit of a report from his perspective a little later in the meeting, but he will be here at some point for this meeting. We're not going to actually have a panel discussion, too, at the end of this meeting like we have for the last year. What we're going to do instead is break so that Andy can go down to the newsroom and address the people down there. Although we do have a very exciting panel for our next board meeting in April, which I can't reveal yet, but anybody who's listening or watching should be there, definitely. So that's the welcome for Andy. Rick Stengel, who has been the best Undersecretary for Public Affairs this board has ever seen, has been heavily and actively engaged in everything we did. Unfortunately, got called to help manage a very important conference combating violent extremism that's happening across town at the White House, which was scheduled for today after we scheduled this meeting. So Rick is also here in spirit and won't be joining us today, but he's been very active with a lot of the things the board is doing, and so he will be back with us for the next board meeting, but not here today. And I think we all support him doing what he's doing across town. And I also should mention that Andy Lack was invited to join that conference tomorrow too. So Andy will be here today at some point during the board meeting, and then he'll be joining that conference as well, which is great. So before we turn to the business of the board today, I would like to draw attention, as we usually do, to the troubling developments around the world, particularly in Azerbaijan since our last meeting. We got a full briefing from John and Nenad and the management yesterday. But just a quick summary: on December 26, Azerbaijan police raided and closed Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty's Baku bureau. The bureau remains closed today. Its attorneys disqualified and its accounts frozen. We can't even pay our employees because the money's frozen. And several Baku staff members have left Azerbaijan. Concurrently, investigative journalist and RFE/RL contributor Hadija Ismailova remains in jail, given a January 27 decision by an Azeri court to extend her pretrial detention by another 2 months, and the rejection of her most recent appeal on February 6. And on February 13th, new charges have been brought against Hadija that could result, if convicted on these charges, in a maximum sentence of 12 years in prison. While Hadija demonstrates fierce resolve, we are deeply concerned and outraged by the Azerbaijani government's flagrant assaults on press freedom. We demand that the authorities permit the bureau to reopen, release Hadija, and halt the harassment of RFE/RL journalists and their families. In fact, there's a consistent pattern of threats to our colleagues across our global operation. Journalists with RFE/RL's Ukrainian service continue to suffer intimidation and harassment in Ukraine, and several radio, TV, Marti reporters' equipment has been confiscated by employees. Additionally, the family of a Uyghur service reporter of Radio Free Asia continues to be harassed and imprisoned in China. These unfortunate incidents remind us that the press worldwide is not free, and our work is needed now more than ever. And we support all of our journalists and all of our entities as they fight the good fight, and particularly in Azerbaijan, where we are in a very difficult position, and we're continuing to try to operate and do our important work there with increasing government pressure. And finally, as always, I call for anybody who has any information about Bashar Fahmy, the Al Hurd reporter who has not been seen or heard from since he disappeared during a reporting trip in Aleppo, Syria, more than 2 years ago, to please step forward and let us know if they have any word on his well-being. So now we turn to the board business. Before we turn to the business before the board today, I would acknowledge that the presence of 5 or more governors satisfies the board's quorum requirement. We may conduct business based on a majority vote since a quorum is present. On February 4th, the board received by email materials for the consent agenda, allowing sufficient time for all governors to review prior to this meeting. No governors had any comments for me about the consent agenda. It actually had 3 items. The first item was the minutes from the December 18th meeting. The second item was a resolution honoring Governor Michael Meehan, who left the board when Karen was appointed. And the third was a resolution on revised BBG meeting dates for 2015. This time I'd like to ask all governors here if they have any comments on the consent agenda or questions. Okay, I do not see any comments, so does the governor move for the adoption of the consent agenda? Any move? Ken Weinstein moves. Any second? Second by Leon, getting in under the gun. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any objections? Okay, the consent agenda is adopted. I would say too that the board meeting schedule has been put together with consultation with Andy, and I'm pleased that we're going to be going back to Prague this year. We didn't last year. The board has in previous years, and we're excited, John and Nenad, to come see the work you guys are doing. And then what we're planning to do, Carlos, we won't be going to Miami this year, but we're planning to kind of alternate years of doing Prague 1 year and Miami the last year. We went to Miami last year, which was great, and we'll be there in 2016 again. We should be in Miami. Let it be noted, Carlos said we should be in Miami today, and the chairman agrees with that comment. I'll be in Los Angeles later today. Members of the public who register to attend our open meetings have the opportunity to request a chance to speak for up to 3 minutes. I'm very pleased that we have a number of the public here today. Unfortunately, as I mentioned before, Ann Noonan from the Committee of U.S. International Broadcasting has also had travel issues, and as I mentioned before, and she's not here. And I believe we have one other member, but he is not here. So Carl Atto of Joint Baltic American National Committee said he would be here and registered to speak, but is not here. So I want to acknowledge, by the way, Ted Lippian in the audience today, which is very exciting to all of us. So I don't think we have any public speakers registered today. So I would say the board, just to say this formally, the board likes to hear from the public. We encourage people to come speak to us. I wish we had more speakers in front of this board. We have a limit of 10 speakers per board meeting. We've never hit our limit. And my goal is at some point before I end my chairmanship, at some point during my tenure, we will hit our limit. So please, members of the public, even if you come to tell us how your spring break was, come talk to the board. So the way we're going to do the meeting today is we're going to do, as we've been doing for the past year for the new board members, is rather than do updates on each entity provides their updates to us in writing every month, and then each board member meeting we focus on one entity or another. We've actually gone through all the entities in our first year, which has been really great, and now we're starting over with Voice of America, who was the first to present to us over a year ago, and is now going to be presenting today an update on what's going on with Voice of America. So I'd like for the board to take a quick break for 10 minutes while we set up for the presentation. Is it in here? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to take a 5-minute break, Ryan, while VOA sets up, and then we're going to go into the next part of the board meeting.